I think there's something wrong with your camera. I can't see you.
I'm here, in the shadows.
Okay.
I was thrilled when one of my ghouls told me that you were willing to do longer messages than the other A-list celebrities on the name brand celebrity message website.
You're actually the first person to pay for a long cameo.
Say not the brand name!
Sorry.
In fact, don't even speak unless I say. I am paying you to read something specific, not to chit-chat. It should be arriving in your email box now.
But I never gave you my...
Silence, I say! I have sent you a horrific terror story I thought was right up your alley. You will read it to me out loud, and if you do a good job, I may consider using your services in the future. Okay? You can speak now.
Whatever, man. You got 30 minutes. If this is what you want me to do...
Yes.
The statue. Granite T. Chiselman was giddy as he drove his name-brand luxury car up the drive to his Beverly Hills mansion. The Italian cypress trees stood at attention as he passed, reminding him of thumbs pointing upward, as if nature itself was signaling to the man that he had succeeded. He was successful. He made it. As he parked in front of his palatial manor, the servants came out to open his doors and lay down a carpet so his expensive shoes, worth more than their lives combined, he joked, wouldn't have to touch something as poor as the ground. He marveled again at his wild and unprecedented success. The classic American rags to riches story, Granite had started with nothing and $100 million in a trust fund, and he managed to acquire a multinational business empire through sheer brilliance, unbridled ruthlessness, and when his parents died and he inherited their companies. He was an inspiration to millions, himself most of all. But even though he loved meditating on his genius and success, that wasn't why he was giddy. "Where is it?" he asked as he exited his luxurious automobile. His words were directed at his head butler, Scott Lemonfresh, who had been serving the family for decades. "It is in the garden, sire," Lemonfresh said, kowtowing to the wealthy man in an obsequious manner. "As instructed." Granite smirked the smirk of a king. "You've never disappointed me or the family," Granite proclaimed. His face suddenly darkened. "For you know the price of disappointment." A faraway look flashed across Lemonfresh's face. In his mind, he heard the sizzle of fire, the crack of whips, and screams. "Yes," he said, doing his best to drown the haunted timbre in his voice, "as do we all." The other servants nodded in mute terror. Granite fiddled with his cufflinks, worth more than his servants' homes. "Very good," he said. "Lead me to it." What Granite called a garden, some might call a park. It stretched for acres in the heart of Beverly Hills, an egotistical testament to his power, wealth, and influence. Manicured to sublime perfection, he once told a visiting pope that it was a better version of the Garden of Eden. And there, in the very center, the place where all the walking paths led, stood his collector's coup de grace, Il Pazzo's eponymous. Carved of beautiful Italian granite, the statue depicted the mad Italian sculptor in all his insane glory. Eyes narrowed in a demented squint, body curved unnaturally in an Igor-like hunch. Clawed hands raised, as if he was ready to scratch Granite's billionaire face, like so many of his pet tigers had done before he released them back into the wilds of Griffith Park. It was the last statue Il Pazzo carved before he disappeared. Most assumed he'd jumped off the Ponte Vecchio and was swept out to sea, a thing he'd often talked wistfully about. But a body was never found. "Do you know how much this is worth?" Granite asked. His servants waited politely to make sure this was an actual question and not just a rich man's rumination. "It's art, sire," Lemonfresh finally hazarded. "It's priceless?" Granite spun with a cat's grace and scratched Lemonfresh across the right cheek with his fingernails. "Fool!" he spat. "Everything has a price, even you. And this thing's price was $1 billion exactly." The servants' hearts skipped a collective beat. $1 billion? They hadn't gotten a raise in 5 years. "Yes, indeed," Granite said, the evil grin of a billionaire perching on his face like a diseased butterfly. It will be the centerpiece at my party this weekend, and once all the celebrities and popes and kings and everyone else comes to see it, then they will truly know that I am the richest and most influential of them all. No one will ever again question my power or majesty. I have, in essence, won. And this statue, expensive enough to feed countless mouths or eradicate homelessness, will be my victory lap. The servants nodded, scared into submission. Lemonfresh put a hand to his cheek and pulled it away, seeing on his fingers the most crimson of liquid, that being blood, and hoping it wasn't a portent of things to come. Night settled over the expansive mansion like a cruel dragon landing on the parapet of a princess's tower. Perched precariously, one false move could send the whole palace plummeting. Vinegar Mophandle, a maid and menial servant of the estate, put the finishing touches on the last of the outdoor tables for Lord Chiselman's party, which some tabloids were already calling the event of the summer. She read the place cards as she laid them out. Russell Crowe, Selena Gomez, Treat Williams, the Pope, Vladimir Putin, Elizabeth Warren, and last but not least, Andy Dick. She stepped back to look at her handiwork. Dozens of tables were scattered artfully around the eponymous statue, each with an unobstructed view of what had officially been dubbed by the name brand Book of Records as the most expensive thing ever purchased. Vinegar's eyes settled upon the statue, soaking in its delightful symmetry, its lifelike appearance, its erotic curves, its... Hang on, she muttered out loud to herself, a habit her mother once told her was whorish. Something isn't right here. She approached the statue, uneasiness fluttering in her heart like a one-winged dove. Something was indeed wrong, and if the master of the house thought she had something to do with it, the berating would be intense and nigh unto endless. She stood before the statue and cocked her head to the side. The eponymous' pose was identical to before, as one would expect with a statue, but its hands! In its hands, the statue held a chainsaw, shiny and new, a name-brand tree slicer that, judging from the gardening shed's open door, had been removed from this very garden shed. The garden shed of one Lord Chiselman. How did that get there? She muttered to herself. Was someone playing a joke? The master of the house wouldn't tolerate anyone fiddling with his billion-dollar art piece, joke or otherwise. I'll put this away, Vinegar decreed. She tried to pry the chainsaw from the statue's grasp, but the stone man's fingers were locked around it as tightly as a babe to his mother's breast. There was no separation, not a single inch of give. She gave the infernal contraption one final tug and then turned around in a frustrated huff, arms crossed like an angry 2-year-old. I don't understand, she complained. How could such a thing be possible? How could a statue grip a chainsaw? How could... Her insufferable whining was interrupted by the sound of a chainsaw revving up to the diabolical RPMs necessary to rip a head clean off a neck. Vroom, vroom! A shadow fell across Vinegar. She turned around and screamed. Lemonfresh pinched the bridge of his nose, trying to stave off a frustration-induced migraine. 3 maids in hazmat suits put the last of Vinegar's limbs into heavy-duty trash bags and tied them shut. A cleaning crew was almost done hosing the blood off of Eponymous, but the cops were the main focus of his worry. They lingered. He glared at Detective Samuel Hunchgutfeeling, Sam to his friends, as he wriggled his bushy mustache in a most disagreeable manner. The gardener, who was being questioned by the wretched officer of the law, fiddled with his cap. No, sir, the gardener said. I ain't seen anything like a weapon. I just came out here to attend to the daisies, and poor Miss Vinegar was split in two right in front of that statue there. Heck, I thought her intestines was an invasive species of snake for a moment, and I was about to run to my shed to get the snake poison. Shed? Samuel asked, his detective senses tingling. That could be a clue. Where is this so-called shed? The gardener, whose name was Hubert Trowelhands by the by, opened his mouth to say some damn full thing, but Lemonfresh quickly cut in. Sir, he sternly proclaimed, placing himself between the detective and the gardener, the master will wake soon, and all this must be as if it were just a dream by then. This statue, this eponymous, is his billion-dollar investment. And if the master thinks for even 1 second that his billion-dollar investment is in jeopardy, there will be heck to pay, I assure you. Master, Samuel asked, jotting all this down in his crumpled little notebook. What is this guy, some kind of Dracula? Or moose? Samuel looked up, smiling, but was greeted by confused gazes, the joke landing like a hard-boiled egg onto a bed of nails. Clearly, he ran in different, better social circles. Tough crowd, he said, tucking his notebook away. But I don't care when this so-called master wakes. This is a murder scene, and I'm a police. I got the authority here. Lemonfresh frowned. Sir may be unaware, but the master you so brazenly mock is Mr. Chiselman, as in Chiselman presents the Policeman's Ball and the G.T. Chiselman Retired Police Persons Fund, Samuel concluded for him. He sighed. I get the picture. Samuel turned his head to look at the statue, his glare challenging it to reveal its deepest secrets. A challenge the statue eagerly accepted, and twice as eagerly won. Alrighty then, Samuel said. He lit a cigarette and took a long puff. I'll be around. Lemonfresh watched the man wander off and knew that he was going to be trouble. Limousines stretched around the block as the glitz and glam of the global elite sparkled down upon the Beverly Hills mansion and its sprawling estate, like manna from heaven. The party had every possible luxury: ambrosia from the sweetest Italian orchards, wines from the Sonoma Valley of Sonoma Valley, crepes cooked by the French president himself, and so many other name-brand delicacies that the lawsuits would be endless if all were to be mentioned. Troubadours flicked to and fro between the groups of the global elite, strumming delicious songs and singing tasty melodies, lulling the billionaires into a state of euphoric calm they had come to expect from the game we call life. The wretched millionaires eyed them pitifully from the roped-off millionaire section, where store-bought caviar and a string quartet were the only available diversions. Lemonfresh was no stranger to such opulence, so it was mere child's play for him to ignore all of it. He watched the statue instead, which was now clean of Vinegar's blood, as if nothing macabre at all had transpired earlier this day. A slight tilt of the head, a curve in the right eyebrow, a twist of the wrist. It somehow looked different. Or did it? What was more likely, that an old man's old brain was being ludicrous, or that a statue moved? He knew what the Vegas bookies would bet on. He turned away, about to return to his lowly duties, when he caught a glimpse of motion from the insane sculpture's petrified body. He was upon the statue in a flash, his perceptive eyes scrutinizing every inch of the precious granite. Lemonfresh! A domineering voice bellowed from his rear. Lemonfresh spun about, the menial genes in his DNA forcing his spine to springlock into the stiffest attention of his life. Chiselman was behind him, his billionaire's arms crossed in frustration and anger. What are you doing so close to my precious statue? He asked in a gruff, rich man's castigation. Lemonfresh's mouth flopped open and closed in an excellent impression of a fish, as he searched for the words that would both appease his master and make him appear to, indeed, have a brain in his skull. Could he ever tell his employer what he feared? That the statue was somehow alive? That it had somehow inexplicably killed one person and would do so again? Lemonfresh began, his tongue feeling like an exceedingly dry slug in his mouth. Chiselman sneered. Lord Almighty, are you a butler or a seaman? Lemonfresh slapped himself. Has Sir noticed anything unusual about his beloved statue? He finally asked. The man named Granite turned his wealthy eyes towards his most prized possession with the titanic slowness of a ship of the line preparing for a broadside. I've noticed its unusual beauty, Chiselman sneered, and I've noticed its unusual expensiveness. But we've all noticed that. Speak plainly, O butler of mine. Dare he say it? Dare he? I'm worried this statue might somehow be alive, Lemonfresh blurted out, the words spewing from his orifice like name-brand dish soap from a squeezed bottle. Chiselman's face was unreadable and unmoving, just like the famous statue he loved so well. He waved his hand in the air. Glub, glub, he called. A rotund woman in a maid's uniform scurried over. At your beck and call, O gracious lord, Glub Glub sniveled. Lemonfresh's heart dropped into the infinite pit of his stomach. You're now in charge of the party, Chiselman decreed. Escort Mr. Lemonfresh back to his butler's lair. I'm afraid he may need a nap to clear his head. Glub Glub grabbed Lemonfresh's arm with a grip made iron by years of scrubbing and washing. Right this way, sir, she commanded to Lemon Fresh, her words like daggers. Lemon Fresh looked from his master to the statue in a near panic, and he saw something. A finger. It moved. You must believe me, you must! Get your hands off me, Glub Glub! You've been gunning for my job ever since I rescued you from the gutter you were sleeping in. I saw it move, sir. I saw the finger move. It was to no avail, however, for Glub Glub's grip was steely and strong, and Chiselman was already gone. Lemon Fresh's butler's lair felt more like a prison than a butler's lair now, probably because Glub Glub locked the heavy oak door from the outside and threw away the key. Lemon Fresh had been pacing the stone floor for some time now, long enough that he half expected to have worn grooves. He eventually settled onto his butler's bed, a narrow affair made of plywood and straw, standard for the business, he hated to admit, and stared up at the rough stone ceiling, watching the old copper pipes leak, watching water form into droplets and drip, drip, drip onto his wretched face, until it was impossible to tell the difference between the leakage and the late middle-aged man's pathetic tears. Lemon Fresh listened. A hint of music, the clink of champagne flutes, the soft aroma of fresh-trod grass. He heard it all. And then, a screech. He feared it came from the garden. Could it be? Could it be? He strained his ears more mightily than they had ever strained before, listening intently for another shout, another scream, another shriek. And he heard them. They rose from the gardens like a surfer catching a Malibu wave. Wails of profoundest fear. The statue, he breathed, terror coloring his words, the rouge shade of frightened fancy. The statue! It must have fully animated, and if those screams were any judge, it must have started doing what he feared it would. Killing. He crashed against the door with all his might. Then again. The damn thing was solid, made of a far thicker material than that which could be breached by a mere butler's shoulder or butler's elbow. The screams built, becoming a deafening aria of wealthy horror. Lemon Fresh glanced around the chamber, around his butler's prison, looking for something that could help. His butler's bed? Butler's basin? Butler's combination bucket/toilet? Nothing. But then, aha! His shovel. His trusty butler's shovel. He grabbed its firm handle, feeling the sleekness of wood worn smooth by the constant rub of gentle butler hands. Yes, this would do. With a shriek of power, he hefted the digging tool and struck the door again and again and again. Slowly, the spade tore through the facade, splintering wooden beams with deft savagery, parting the slats of dead tree like a hunchbacked gravekeeper dismantling a coffin. One more whack, and the door crumbled into its constituent parts, that being wood. A swift kick brought the whole thing crashing down like so many Jenga bricks, and Lemon Fresh was through. His patent leather butler shoes skidded across the shiny marble floor as he rushed outside. The screams were dying down now, slow diminishing of both their number and volume, somehow more disconcerting than when both these factors were at their apogee. He navigated the maze-like hallways with a butler's supreme sense of direction. In less than a dragon's heartbeat, he found himself at the back door. Curtains of the finest Egyptian cotton fluttered in his butler's face. They were stained with dark splotches. Lemon Fresh grabbed one of the curtains as it fluttered and examined it. The most crimson of liquid, that being blood. The curtains slid from his hands, and his eyes, his doleful, butlery eyes, slid too, from the curtains to the open portal before him. A portal to the outside, the party, the horror! Bodies lay strewn about like chaff after a harvest. Blood pooled on the redwood patio. Blood soaked the Beverly Hills earth, feeding the roots and worms and mycelial networks with precious nutrients. Blood was splashed on the statue's base. But the statue, the body, that petrified artist of lore, was gone. Lemon Fresh stepped over the bodies two at a time until he reached that dreaded plinth of horror, that space where, mere minutes ago, he had seen a stone statue move. His heart swelled with remorse. A butler was the caretaker of a household, responsible for all things in the household, human lives included. Why hadn't he been more forceful with his beloved Master Chiselman? Why hadn't he taken his trusty butler's sledgehammer, standard issue, to the statue, ending its evil once and for all? His job, his very freedom be damned. Why didn't... A billionaire's shriek caught his attention. He knew that sound, knew it well. He'd been hearing it for years when its originator noticed a speck of dust on the marble countertops or the smallest skid mark stain in its own laundered underwear. Chiselman. Lemon Fresh reached for his belt and drew his long butler's knife, serrated and fiendishly sharp, his eyes never leaving the shrubbery bank that blocked his vision of the source of the noise. He stalked forward, his senses on high alert. This was all part of his training, the part every butler prayed about on his knees every night. Please, God, please don't make me use my special skills. The bush reared before him like a leafy mammoth. The screams behind the plant were dying now, devolving, in fact, to a pitiful whimper, punctuated by something uncomfortable, organic, and visceral. It was now or never. Lemon Fresh burst through the bush, but his butler's training couldn't prepare him for the sight and the sound and the stench awaiting him. Chiselman was on the ground, a sharpened paintbrush covered in gore next to him. His hands were twitching. His billionaire's face curled into a rictus grin of pain. The statue was crouched in front of him, his body leaning over his victim, blocking Chiselman's midsection and whatever the statue's hands were doing to him. A twig snapped, and Chiselman's head lolled to the side. His eyes creaked open. "Please," he whispered to Lemon Fresh, his words having the quality of air leaking from a balloon. "Please." The statue spun around, and a sudden series of images assaulted Lemon Fresh's ocular reductora. Blood, viscera clutched in stony hands, organs strewn about the grass, a gore-caked mouth, chewing, chewing, chewing. A blood-drenched face, the sticky red liquid peeling off the stone. No, stony paint peeling from olive-hued skin. And the eyes, the mad, demented, artistic, human eyes. "Il pazzo!" the sculptor shrieked, his words as demented as they were Italian. "Il pazzo, il pazzo, il pazzo!" Lemon Fresh backpedaled, slipping on gore and tumbling to the ground. "No," he blubbered. "Please, what are you?" Il Pazzo cocked his head to the side and with a blood-coated arm gestured to the mutilated billionaire. "This," he said, eyes wide with madness. "This is art."
My. Has your opinion of the art world been irrevocably and foreverly changed?
The guy was a statue the whole time? Where did he go to the bathroom?
That's not important to the...
Like, did he ship himself from Italy in a crate? He was standing all that time? Did he ever get tired?
Silence! You, my dear, are asking all the wrong questions.
You've got like 2 minutes.
The right question is, how well did I do?
Do I really have to stay here for the full 30 minutes?
The contract was ironclad.
Fine. How did I do?
You did splendidly, just splendidly. In fact, you did so well that me asking you to ask me how well you did has just been a ruse.
A what?
Ah, yes, you're an actor, not a writer. A distraction.
A distraction? From what?
From you being a permanent addition to my library.
What the? Ah! There's a zombie behind me. It's got a big old club in its hand and it's raising it up and oh my god, it's swinging the club down now and...
It's a ghoul, not a zombie, you Philistine. Take her away. I anticipate your return to my dungeon. This episode was performed by Tess Liégeois and Lord Serpent. It was edited by Charles Brock and Lord Serpent. Statue was written by Charles Brock and Lord Serpent. It was produced by Stacey Milbourne, Michael Morgan, Charles Brock, and Lord Serpent. Michael Morgan and Lord Serpent were the audio engineers. The music was composed by Charles Brock and Lord Serpent. Tune in next time for even more horrific tales of terror. Though they may be long in the making, they will be evil in the taking. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Lord Serpent's Library and check out my homepage at rss.com/podcasts/Lord Serpent's Library.